Hello, everyone. Welcome to Men Seeking Wisdom, the panel of four who seeks wisdom in the good book here and hopes to bring maybe a little bit of, contemplative knowledge to the viewer out there. We hope that what we're doing is inspiring people out there to learn and read on their own. And, we're all about just spreading the word of God and the gospel here and, just trying to heal this poor ailing world at times. So, real quick introductions to everybody, and then we're going to go ahead and get started in the next few chapters of Job. Basically, what we're going to be going over today is Job's friends. Job's friends now get their turn. They've been silent for a time here with Job, but now they give up their thoughts on the situation. So, just real quick, Roger, say hello, please.
Hi, Roger, back here again. Excited to delve into the Word and to seek more wisdom. And I hope that you guys are also seeking it because it's something that we direly need.
Amen to that. Matt, sir, if you would.
Hey guys, Matt. Excited to be back once again, studying the scriptures with these wonderful gentlemen and with you guys watching at home. Thanks for spending the time with us, and we hope we bring the spirit and you feel love in your heart, and you learn something and we learn something. So glad to be here.
Amen to that. And Russ, if you would, please.
Hey, Russ here. Happy to be here with you gentlemen today, going over the word.
Amen to that. Yeah. And of course, I'm Dave here. Before I get into that, I do want to thank all of our viewers, people who have been commenting on our videos. It's great. Be sure to share that with people you think need it right now. I've actually heard from some people already saying that we've actually helped them through some kind of hard times just from hearing this. Just us reading here can help somebody, and maybe they hear something they really desperately need to hear. So if you think someone's like that, please share it with them or share your own stories of the Bible with them. There can be no better balm on what ails you. So what we're going to do today is we split this up with Job's three friends, and the three of us, David, Roger, and Matt, are going to each take a friend. We're going to take a section from each one and go over it. Roger's going to start with Eliphaz, and then I will take over Bildad, and Matt will take Zophar. So since we're picking up on chapter 4 here, if you would go ahead and be kind to get us started.
Yeah, I'm going to read the whole chapter, and then we'll discuss a few of the points here inside to make it a little more expedient. So Job 4, King James Version. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, If we essay to commune with thee, wilt thou be grieved? But who can withhold himself from speaking? Behold, thou hast instructed many, and thou hast strengthened the weak hands. Thy words have upholded him that was falling, and thou hast strengthened the feeble knees. But now it has come upon thee, and thou faintest, it touches thee, and thou troubled? If not this, thy fear, thy confidence, thy hope, and thy uprightness of thy ways? Remember, I pray thee, who ever perish being innocent? Or where were the righteous cut off? Even as I have seen, they that plowed iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. By the blasts of God they perish, and by the breath of his nostrils are they consumed. The roaring of the lion and the voice of the fierce lion, and the teeth of the young lions are broken. The old lion perish for lack of prey, and the stout lion's whelps are scattered abroad. Now a thing was secretly brought to me, and mine ear received a little thereof. In thoughts from the visions of the night, when deep sleep falleth on men, fear came upon me and trembling, which made all my bones to shake. Then a spirit passed before my face, the hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern the form thereof. An image was before mine eyes, there was silence, and I heard a voice saying, Shall mortal men be more just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his maker? Behold, he put no trust in his servants, and his angels he charged with folly. How much less in them that dwell in houses of clay, whose foundation is in the dust, who are crushed before the moth? They are destroyed from morning to evening. They perish forever without any regarding it. Doth not their excellency which is in them go away? They die even without wisdom. So let's sort of set the stage. Remember that they've been this friend has been silent. And then he says up here, well, I can't be silent anymore. Even though he sort of asked him, hey, would you be troubled if I talk? He said, I'm going to talk it, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. And then he started, and I'm going to be paraphrasing a little bit here. Then he started sort of showing him that these are things that you've done in the past. You've helped people in the past. You've lifted them up when they've been down. You've given them encouragement when they lacked it. But now that you're going through this, you're troubled by it. So it seems like he's not very sympathetic to his plight at this point. He seems to be implying that something happened so that he earned this or merited this somehow. Okay. I'll skip a little bit further down, and then he says here, and this is key, I think. Even as I have seen, so he's talking from his experience here. Even as I have seen, they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. So what is he intimating here, fellas?
That he's wicked or he's done something wrong. He's a sinner.
I think so. I think he's sort of saying, listen, my experience is that when people do something wicked, that's when God, or they are punished. You would think, he didn't say, I think God per se, but it's inferred, right? Yeah. But we know from the chapter 1 that that's not the case here, because God himself said that he was a righteous man before mine eyes. So he's coming from a place of incorrect assumption. And to me, this is something that we have to be very careful about, right? Because we all have experiences that form who we are, but it's not just us. We have to be cognizant of the person that we are attributing things to or giving advice to, because we don't know all the facts in their lives. We haven't lived side by side with them all the time. Yeah. And I think that's a cautionary kind of circumstance that we have to be cognizant of, because I think he's coming, he's thinking that he's helping. I think he is a friend. He wants to help him. He just is under the wrong kind of impression about what the type of help he needs. He doesn't want reproof. He wants sympathy, and he's not getting that.
Right.
Yeah, I find an interesting tie-in here between verse 6 and verse 17. So as we see in the first 5 verses there, it seems like he's kind of getting on to Job. And in 6 he says, is it not this thy fear, thy confidence, thy hope, and the uprightness of thy ways? So it's like, basically it sounds like he's saying, you've always thought yourself to be this pillar of righteousness, and people have come to you for advice and for warmth and succor, and you gave it to them, but maybe your greatest fear is none of this is true about you. And if you look at verse 17, where he says, shall mortal man be more just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his maker? So it sounds almost like he's getting on to Job for maybe having a little too much vanity, thinking he'd be immune from all these bad times that have just assailed him, Israel. I might be kind of misinterpreting that, but that's what I thought about when I read this.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Yeah.
I think the scriptures definitely show that this friend particularly is kind of looking at Job and saying, you think that you're really good, but obviously you've done something wrong, because God wouldn't be doing this to you if you hadn't done anything wrong. So maybe you need a little humble pie, friend, and you need to realize you have done something wrong. I think that's where the friend's coming from, what the scripture's setting up for us.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the assumption. Exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it really speaks to human nature most of the time. How quickly we are to see somebody in a situation and make a snap judgment or a snap assessment about what they're doing, what they did wrong, and try to tell them how to fix it, when really what we should do is just pray that God intervene in the situation.
Absolutely. And that was one of my points that I was going to bring up, is that he came from his experience of what he's seen, but he's not seeking what God's wisdom is in this situation. And that's, Russ, I think you hit the nail on the head. That's where he is not really coming from the right place here. I mean, I'm not saying that we don't do this, because of course we do, right? I mean, we look at the circumstances and we sort of form an opinion, but this is telling us, I think cautionarily, so that we have to be careful, because it's the person that is going through this that we have to be cognizant of, and not our experiences that apply to him.
Yeah. And what's funny is most of the time when we do this, it's for somebody that we know or care for more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have family members, and when they do something that you know they shouldn't be, your first instinct is to say, you're doing this wrong, do it this way,
Mm-hmm.
when really you should just be quiet and let the Lord handle it.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that's important to note is that in this situation, Job is an upright, righteous, and perfect man. So it is a little different than having a conversation with somebody like a child that's going out and doing drugs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Job is not doing those things. From the evidence we've been given through the scripture, he's perfect, which means he's a complete, trying his best to do everything that he can. And so that's going to be throughout all these conversations. But I do agree with you 100%. Whether somebody's perfect or not, it's not our place to judge them. And I think definitely God has worked through me. It's always been love. You love somebody and you're there for them, you know? And then when the time comes and they ask for your help, you open your mouth when you have the Spirit. When you don't, you keep it shut.
You got it.
Yeah,
You got it.
I think that was like the main things, because Job's friends seeing this happening and Job knowing within himself that he was righteous and did no wrong, but on the outside the friend sees it and just says, you must have done something wrong.
Right.
Yeah. You're right. And that would be a kind of an obvious conclusion to some people, because it's, you know, you're assuming he's being judged. You know, you're just assuming it, but that's not the case. And there's one thing, you know, this is the one thing that kind of upset me. If I was a friend, the worst thing is to be insensitive to what they're going through, right? And notice in number 11, in verse 11, he says, "The old lion perish for lack of prey, and the stout lion's whelps are scattered abroad." This is a man whose whole brood, all his children were killed, and you're telling him this?
Yep.
You know, talk about closing somebody's spirit and not being sensitive to what their pain is. You know, we have to be cognizant of what people are going through before we make, you know, idle kind of statements like this. We have to be very careful of.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love that as we've been doing this, as I've read this and I've realized, okay, I do not want to be like these friends. You know, I've actually noticed in my own life times that I have been like these friends, and it's really made me want to be better. And I think that's what's so great about reading the scriptures. You read them, you learn something, and then you try to apply it. And every time you do that, you might just get a little bit better, you know? And so I really have, like, you know, Facebook. I'm on Facebook, and the reason I do it is because of The Boy Who Had 7, right? So I love to share the things that I have, and it's part of the whole YouTube process. But I found that sometimes people will post things, and in my head I have a thought, and it's kind of like these thoughts, and I've been ashamed with myself, actually. As we've been studying this, because I'm like, that is not like a good thing I didn't act on those thoughts, you know, and a good thing I didn't say anything, but I want to be even better. I don't want to have those thoughts. When somebody says something and they're going through something, I don't want to think, well, if you had done this, you know, I just want to be able to say, hey, I love you. How can I help? And reading this has made me think that way. And I hope if I apply it, I'm a better friend.
See, another problem we have too in situations like this is a perfect example. You know, humans like answers to things. They don't like mystery. I mean, they like to solve them, but they want a resolution at the end. And so we are automatically thinking, especially to someone who is righteous, if something bad is happening to them, there has to be a reason for it that we would understand. this is the kind of a play that God is making that we can't understand. It's laid out here for us, but his plan originally for Job, it's beyond what we could think of. Who would think of, tormenting the best man on earth to prove a point to Satan, right? So it's like, this is way beyond what, the plan that we could do ourselves. But here we automatically are judging Job. Something must be wrong. You must have done something wrong to deserve this, because, God is wroth with you. And he wasn't at all. It's just that it just shows how easily we can fall into that trap of being judgmental and looking before we leap. So yeah, great points there too, Matt, about that.
I think that just goes back to the human nature again. We only see what's right in front of us. We can't see the whole picture like God can.
Yep. I think that's one of the main messages of this entire story, Russ. You just hit it right there. Yeah. Is that they're seeing a piece of the puzzle and God is seeing the finished product, So if we can remember that when we're going through hard times, boy, will we have strength.
Yeah. And again, let's not be judgmental. Let's be a friend. Let's be sympathetic. Let's try to understand, but not give advice that is perhaps unnecessary or damage. It could damage the situation or make it worse.
Yes.
You have to be cognizant of that. Like you said, all these friends, sometimes the best way to learn is to see what not to do.
Yeah.
And I think this is a kind of a negative flip that you're right. I mean, I went through the same process, Matt. I'm like, man, I'm thinking like this sometimes, but it doesn't come into action. So somewhere the Spirit is intervening. But I'd like to get to the point where I don't even think about it.
It's not part of you.
Right. Yep. Anything else, or should I go to chapter 5?
I'd say we're probably about right there.
Okay, here we go. Call now, if there be any that will answer thee, and to which of the saints wilt thou turn? For wrath killeth the foolish man, and envy slayeth the silly one. I have seen foolish taking root, but suddenly I cursed his habitation. His children are far from safety, and they are crushed in the gate. Neither is there any to deliver them. Whose harvest the hungry eateth up, and taketh it, even out of the thorns, and the robber swalloweth up their substance. Although affliction cometh not forth of the dust, neither doth trouble spring out of the ground. Yet man is born unto trouble, as sparks fly upward. I would seek unto God, and unto God would I commit my cause, which doeth great things and unsearchable marvelous things without number, who giveth rain upon the earth, and sendeth waters upon the fields, to set up on high those that be low, and those which mourn may be exalted to safety. He disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. They meet with darkness in the daytime, and grope in the noonday as in the night. For he saveth the poor from the sword, and their mouth, and from the hand of the mighty. So the poor hath hope, and iniquity stoppeth her mouth. Behold, happy is the man whom God correcteth. Therefore despise not thou the chastening of the Almighty. For he maketh sore and bindeth up. He windeth, and his hands make whole. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles. Yea, in 7 thou shalt no evil touch thee. In famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of the destruction when it cometh. At destruction and famine thou shalt laugh, neither shalt thou be afraid of the beasts of the earth. For thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with thee. And thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and thou shalt visit thy habitation, and thou shalt not sin. Thou shalt also that thy seed be great, and thy offspring as the grass of the earth. Thou shalt come to the grave and in a full age, like as a shock of corn cometh in this his season. Lo, this we have searched it, so it is. Hear it, and we know thou it for thy good. Oh boy, man. Well, as I said in the 4th, he kind of like had more. He formed things more in questions and metaphors to sort of ease what he was thinking about Job. Now he is letting them have it, essentially. There's no doubt that he thinks that Job has done something to deserve this, because the results, are because it's cause and effect, right? The effect is based on some kind of cause. That cause being, Job, you messed up somewhere, all right? And God is doing this because you need correction. Again, the insensitivity here, it really bothers me, right? Number 4, verse 4, his children are far from safety and they are crushed in the gate. Neither is there any to deliver them. So
why would you say that?
Why would you say that when the house fell on them
and crushed them?
And he was praying for them, so that they, just in case they sinned.
Yep.
And so what you did caused their death? Is that what you're saying here? Man, come on, Eliphaz, come on, man. So it's tough stuff. I mean, when I read it, I'm like, my heart is beating because I'm like, what? Even if this was true, it makes no sense for you. It would close somebody's spirit. What kind? I mean, I don't know what vein he said it, right? But just by the words, no matter how you say it, they're very attacking. They're very accusatorial.
Yep. And
not really sympathetic in the least.
No comfort whatsoever.
Yeah, he seems a little sadistic here, especially looking at verse 17 where he says, behold, happy is the man whom God correcteth. Therefore despise not thou the chastening of the Almighty. So basically, embrace your tribulations that you're going through right now, everything he's lost and how he's suffering right now. His friend is telling him to be thankful for this, because he's being shown that he was wrong. Once again, he didn't understand the situation. Job didn't do anything wrong. But, just it's such a good lesson on how to be a human being, like right in this story. It's not just focused on Job. Now we're looking at the other side of the equation of how people around him see things and interpret things. And you're right, Matt. This is such a great way of reminding yourself to, hey, maybe I better put myself in that other person's shoes, or once again, don't rush to judgment so fast because, circumstances beyond his control even may have caused what's going on.
Yeah. 2 things I'd like to share here that popped in my mind right now. The first thing is that these friends aren't aware of what we're aware of. And that is that Satan is the person attacking this man and his family. So he has received permission from the Lord because the Lord knows Job can do this. But it's Satan that's attacking him. And one thing that I've learned in my life is Satan always uses a truth with a twist. So he can hook you on your feelings because you know that part of that is real. It's a truth to you. And then he twists it just enough to pervert it. And 17 is perfect because behold, happy is the man whom God corrected. That's a truth.
Mm-hmm.
As we're reading scriptures, I just told you, I realize in my head, man, maybe I don't react the best way when I see certain things, or maybe I judge. And I'm grateful and I'm happy right now to be able to realize that and change. So I am happy that God has corrected me through his scriptures, right? But then this friend goes on to do the twist and the lie. Therefore, despise not thou the chastening of the Almighty. He's saying, I am telling you right now, I'm chastening you for God. I am speaking for God right now, and you are being chastised by me. In that moment, that guy thinks he's speaking for God, but he is not. He's not speaking for God. And to assume that we could ever speak for God is a very delicate and sensitive thing. And that's why I think earlier, I know there's been times in my life where I felt the Spirit, and I have definitely spoken the words that God would have me speak. But his friend here it seems to me like you need to repent and you are bad, and I am speaking for God. And I think, like we said earlier, he's kind of talking to what he perceives as Job's pride, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he's become the very thing that he's speaking against in that moment.
Something else too is. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're still talking.
No, I'm done. That's it.
Well, there was if you really think about this too, there's a certain like smug satisfaction of this, because a lot of people love to watch good people or righteous people fall. We've all heard about the preacher getting busted for whatever with no proof. We automatically say he deserved that. Good, get him out of there. Any good works he'd done before are completely wiped out, you know, and they expect that. You know, they expect anyone who's righteous to do bad, to be bad intrinsically, and they're just fooling everybody. And so it seems like, you know, this is how his friend Eliphaz is approaching this. You know, it's like, you know, you're too big for your britches, and this is what comes upon you. You know, I don't know. That's just kind of a repeat of earlier, but I mean, it's so easy for us to want to see, you know, people in positions of authority or people in positions of trust to be brought down a peg. For some reason, there's some human need to see that in some people, and it sounds like it's happening here with this friend.
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, he kind of tries to give evidence to his conclusions, and that's something we have to be very careful of, because again, look at verse 3, for example. He says, "I have seen the foolish taking root, but suddenly I cursed his habitation." So again, he's going on experiential evidence here. I've seen this happen before. I've seen people who are fools, you know, that go down, and that means his, you know, everything around them, it goes bad. I mean, there's no way that they can be positive or be good if they're going through this, because they're foolish, right?
Yep.
And again, you know, why is he saying this? Okay, I've seen this, so that must be what you're going through. You know, like, is this guy a know-it-all? You know, is that what? I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it. He's sort of, you know, listen, I've seen this, and I know better than what you think. Because remember, he heard him. He heard him. He was there when he heard him, and he said all this stuff about, you know, Lord, you know, I don't want to be born, but he never said that he sinned or deserved it or anything like that. Yeah. So he is drawing a conclusion based on his own evidence, not on what he knows is true. And like you said, Matt, man, we have to be very careful, because he had that vision before in 4, but he took a conclusion for it.
Yeah.
But it may not have been for Job. It may have been for himself.
Yep.
You see, and that's where you have to be careful. It's like you said, it's not that it's untrue. Like when he said that the angels were judged, like obviously Lucifer was, right, and was cast out of heaven. But that doesn't mean that situation applies to you, because Lucifer sinned. He wanted to usurp God's power.
Yep.
That's not what Job wanted here. He was being loose, like David say, as an example to teach Satan a lesson that it's not what I give people that makes them righteous. Okay, it's their faith, and that's what Satan doesn't get. And I don't think Eliphaz gets that either.
Yep.
Again, I think it goes back to seeing what's in front of you. He saw Job at his best at one time, and then he saw him at his worst.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost seems like he came at it in just a very hurtful way, a spiteful way, and almost, I don't know, out of jealousy, like, hey, you're getting what you deserve now. Yeah. Or maybe just a tough love way, but it just seemed definitely very hurtful of what he see Job going through, and then to say the things he said about his children. And, you know, as a person, I would have had a very different response, but it's very tough to be going through all this and then have this person that you considered a friend just tearing you up and saying all these horrible things.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine going through that on top of all the pain that you've experienced too.
Amen.
Yeah,
it's definitely not what he wanted, what he needed to hear at this point. Definitely not.
Yes, yeah.
And I've known people that are sort of like this. If you're going through something, it's just like, hey, get up, shake it off, like it's a leg cramp or something.
This would be almost like, I think analogy to this would be like, say you have a really jealous or nosy neighbor, right? And you save up your money and you buy up a really nice sports car, like a Lamborghini or something. It's just something like that. And you go out and you're sitting at an intersection and someone T-bones you, right? But that neighbor automatically thinks, oh, he deserved, man, that guy got that big fast sports car and he went out and he was just driving like a crazy man and he got in a wreck and he hit somebody, right? Just automatically thinking that just because that person had something, that they did something wrong, you know, and it's such an easy trap to fall into.
Yeah, it's almost like the karma doctrine, that, you deserved it because you did something, and that's just biblically not true. I mean, let's see, Cain killed Abel, and Abel didn't do anything to deserve that, and Eliphaz should have known that, because that would have been in the Torah, So anyway, we don't know about how biblical scholar he was or anything, but it definitely was out there. Let's put it that way. And then at the end, I'll sort of wrap up with this. He tells him, "Hey, if you do repent," well, I'm paraphrasing, right? If you do repent, if you admit that you did something here, look at all the stuff that's going to happen. Your children will be returned to you. Your land, your wealth, which did happen, by the way. Spoilers, right? but not because he repented. What is he? Job is really caught in a rock and a hard place here, because what's he going to say? Yeah, I did something. Well, then he'd be lying. So then he'd be sinning.
Yep.
So what is he supposed to do? So you can imagine the besides what Satan is torturing him with, now this joker comes up, and says, "Oh, look, all this good stuff that like if Job didn't know that, and he had it before, and now he doesn't. Another salt into the wound."
Yeah, it's almost like saying, confess to this crime you didn't commit and get a reduced sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, bear false witness against yourself, and then you'll be redeemed.
Yeah. So, anyway.
Yeah, I think it's about time for Job to defend himself here. What do you say?
You want to go to 6?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
All right, hold on. I'm reading on my phone, and somebody left a message here. I can get rid of it. Okay, hold on. Job, yes, open up Job. Yeah, I mean, Job's reply, I think, is the next 2 chapters. And let's keep in mind what Eliphaz was saying, because he really does kind of object, to what this guy was saying. Well, let's go through it here. Job 6. But Job answered and said, "Oh, that my grief were thoroughly weighed and my calamity laid in the balances together. For now it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words are swallowed up. For the arrows of the Almighty are within me. The poison wherewith drink up my spirit. The terrors of God do set themselves in array against me. Doth the wild ass bray when he hath grass? Or the loweth the ox over his fodder? Can that which is unsavory be eaten without salt? Or is there any taste in the white of an egg? The things that my soul refused to touch are as my sorrowful meat. Oh, that I might have my request, and that God would grant me the thing that I long for. Even that it would please God to destroy me, that he would let loose his hand and cut me off. Then should I have yet comfort. Yea, I would harden myself in sorrow. Let him not spare, for I have not concealed the words of the Holy One. What is my strength that I should hope? And what is thine end that I should prolong my life? In my strength, is my strength the strength of stones, or is my flesh of brass? Is not my help in me, and is wisdom driven quite from me? To him that is afflicted, pity should be shewed from his friend, but he forsaketh the fear of the Almighty. My brethren have dealt deceitfully as a brook, and as the stream of brooks they pass away, which are blackish by the reason of the ice, and wherein the snow is hid. What time they wax warm, they vanish. When it is hot, they are consumed out of their place. The paths of their way are turned aside, and they go to nothing and perish. The troops of Tema looked, and the companies of Sheba waited for them. They were confounded because they had hoped. They came thither and were ashamed. For now ye are nothing. Ye see me casting down and are afraid. Did I say, bring unto me, or give me a reward for me of your substance, or deliver me from the enemy's hand, or redeem me from the hand of the mighty? Teach me, and I will hold my tongue, and cause to understand wherein I have erred. How forcible are right words, but what doth you arguing reprove? Do ye imagine to reprove words and the speeches of one that is desperate, which are as wind? Yea, ye overwhelm the fatherless, and ye dig a pit for your friend. Now therefore be content, look upon me, for it is evident unto you if I lie. Return, I pray you, let it be not be iniquity. Yea, return again, my righteousness is in it. Is there iniquity in my tongue? Cannot my taste discern perverse things? Okay, so these are really 2 or 3 different kind of sections. You know, at first, again, he's reverting back to when he was, what was it? Was it 3? Where he was saying, you know, I just want to die. I want relief. I want comfort, and the only way I'm going to find that I can think of is for you to take my life. You know,
Yes.
So he goes through various times where he's like saying, here. Oh, that I might have my request, and that God would grant me the thing that I long for. Okay, so again, he heard what the friend was saying, but now he's also saying, listen, I want you to understand the depth of what I'm going through here.
Yeah,
and for somebody to prefer death over, in other words, if he had sinned, right, he would have preferred, to have given that up, or, to have admitted it rather than wanting death.
Yep.
Right. But he still wants it. So it tells you, why would I lie if I'm wanting death instead of, this supposed curse that I could get rid of if I admit it?
Yeah.
Again, he's sort of saying you're an idiot. You're a fool. It's not what's happening here. Okay. So if you continue going down, right? He says, and this is kind of an insult to Eliphaz, right? He says, my brethren have dealt deceitfully as a brook, and as the stream of brooks they pass away, right? So he's saying essentially, listen, what you're telling me has you're totally off the mark. This is something that is you're saying, and will go, like the brooks, when it gets in the summer, they dry up and there's nothing there. So there's no substance in what he's saying here. And it's true. Job is, even through what he's going through, he's discerning the situation correctly, even though he doesn't know that the situation, the what's going between God and Satan and him, he is seeing through what Eliphaz is trying to tell him, and he's telling him, you're wrong. You're just wrong.
Yeah.
Any thoughts there, guys?
You've hit everything I wanted to say.
Ooh, Matt.
I like in verse 14 where he says, to him that is afflicted, pity should be shewed from his friend, but he forsaketh the fear of the Almighty. And then you go over to, where did it go? Where did it go? Oh, and then I'll go over to 24. It says, teach me, and I will hold my tongue, and cause me to understand wherein I have erred. So I think, in this way, he's like putting it to Eliphaz here. It's like, okay, where did I go wrong, O wise one? Teach me how I've been wrong and what brought this upon me, and then maybe I can fix this. But it's like, and he can't answer that outside of, well, you must have done something wrong in front of the eyes of the Lord. So it's interesting how he kind of turns that back on him right there. And then, what was the other one? And then 13, and kind of get back to that, is not my help in me, and is wisdom driven quite from me. So basically, do you think I've lost my mind? Do you think I've suddenly forgotten everything I knew about the Lord before because it's assailed me? That's what you're assuming about me. I'm still all I have left is my mind, right? So, and you're saying that I'm not thinking right. Basically, who are you to judge what I'm going through in not so latent terms?
Right on. And he essentially says here, how forcible are right words? In other words, you're saying, to be given advice or to be given even chastisement for the right reasons is meritorious, is correct. But then the next sentence he says, but what does your arguing reprove? So essentially he's saying, I would accept this if it fit the situation righteously.
Right.
But that's not what you're saying. What you're saying is you're arguing something that you have no idea about.
Right.
So that is sort of another dig that he's giving to Eliphaz. He's saying, yeah, the righteous words are good, but that's not what you're saying. What you're doing is arguing something that you don't know anything about. Again, I think Job has discerned this correctly, and now really I think Eliphaz is kind of twisting here. Eliphaz is the one who should be learning something here, and not what he thinks he's trying to impart onto Job. Should I continue to 7, gentlemen?
Yep, I think that'll work.
All right, there we go. Job 7. Is there not an appointed time to man upon earth? Are not his days also like the days of a hireling? As a servant earnestly desireth the shadow, and as a hireling looketh for the reward of his work, so I made to possess months of vanity, and wearisome nights are appointed to me. When I lie down, I say, when shall I rise, and the night be gone? And I am full of tossings to and fro unto the dawning of the day. My flesh is clothed with worms and clods of doth. My skin is broken and become loathsome. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuffle, and are spent without hope. Oh, remember that my life is wind. Mine eye shall no more see good. Oh, sorry. The eye of him that hath seen me shall see me no more. Thine eyes are upon me, and I am not. As the cloud is consumed and vanisheth away, so he that goeth down to the grave shall come up no more. He shall return no more to his house, and neither shall his place know him any more. Therefore I will not refrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I a sea or a whale that thou settest a watch over me? When I say, my bed shall comfort me, my couch shall ease my complaint. Then shalt thou scarest me with dreams, and terrify me through visions, so that my soul chooses strangling and death rather than my life. I loathe it. I would not live away. Let me alone, for my days are vanity. What is man that thou shalt magnify him, and thou shouldest set thine heart upon them, and that thou shouldest visit him every morning and try him every moment? How long wilt thou not depart from me, or not let me alone till I swallow down my spittle? Have I sinned? What shall I do unto thee, O thou preserver of men? Why hast thou set me as a mark against thee, so that I am a burden to myself? And why dost thou not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? For now shall I sleep in the dust, and thou shalt seek me in the morning, but I shall not be. Wow. So again, just sort of like the way that Eliphaz ramped up, his accusatorial tone, Job got a little more annoyed and a little more, aggressive with Eliphaz here in verse 7. And in fact, he's sort of like mocked him. He's like, oh, you're the one who can forgive me. You're the one who has all the knowledge and all. Oh man.
Yeah.
If I was Eliphaz, there would not be a hole deep enough for me to dig and get and fall into at this point.
I think Eliphaz himself is kind of a great parable. If you tend to hang around negative people who just think foul of everybody and everything, you tend to get that way yourself. And you notice how much more angry Job gets here in 7, refuting what Eliphaz has been saying to him, judging him the way he has been. So I think it's a great point, and I make it a special case not to hang around negative people, if I can help it. It doesn't do any good to anybody to always think that way and to be around people like that. You can try to get them to be a little more positive in your life, but some people just aren't going to change. It's not up to me to change anybody. But yeah, I'm very careful with who I spend my time with, and people who are always complaining, people who are putting people down. These are the people I don't really hang around with very much, just because I don't want it to rub off on me.
Yep. One thing that I really like is verse 11. He says, therefore I will not refrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. I think it's healthy and important when we go through hard things to be able to express our pain and our suffering and our bitterness. And I think Job gives us a really good example of how to do it, because he never curses God and dies, right? He never blames God throughout this entire time. He just is like, this is hard. And I think that's okay. You know, there are things we go through that are going to be really hard. And we talked about it last episode. We should be able to question as long as we do it the right way. And so I like that he's able to say, I'm allowed to talk about my suffering and losing my children and being sick and going through what I'm going through. It's okay that I'm doing that, but I'm not cursing God. So,
yeah, and Job is again focused a lot on death here. He keeps talking about it. And he's like, you know, it's almost like he really is like saying, this would be great. You know, it's like you go down in the ground, you don't come back up. You know, you can only imagine. Not only now is he suffering body, mind, possessions, and now friends are attacking him. You know, can you blame him for saying, "Hey, you know, I want to be"? I think at this point, you know, and he even says like the days go on, and you can tell that he just wants this to end. He just wants comfort. And that's not what he's getting. He's getting quite the opposite.
He's getting yelled at.
In his despair, he's just saying, "Lord, just please take me." And everything at this point, everything has gone wrong there. So I just need some kind of relief. I can't take this anymore.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you think about it, put yourself in his place, or just in any person who's having a real run of bad luck. You know, is it going to make you feel better for someone to tell you, well, you've been a complete screw up your entire life, and this is what happens? You know,
even if you were a complete screw up, right?
Instead of coming at you with an answer or some help, maybe a little bit of comfort, you just lay it on them like that and make them feel even worse. You know, so there's tough love and then there's cruelty. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think once again, another good example of how we should behave around people who are having a run of bad times, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like asking somebody to pray for you when you're going through a hard time and them coming up behind you and smacking you over the head with a 2x4. It's
I like that, Russ.
Yeah. Very good analogy there. Yeah, I agree.
And then he says, at least there wasn't a nail in it, but
yeah.
See, it always could be worse.
So the conclusion here is that, like we were talking, that we're going to talk about some other friends coming up, but this particular friend, you know, although again, I really think that he meant well. You know, I think that he thought that he could help Job, but he just had no clue about that circumstances that came about to Job is something he had never seen before.
Yeah.
And so we have to, this is sort of like, again, I sort of wind this back up. We have to be careful about pride, guys, right? Because you know, you could be very learned, you can have all kinds of degrees, and you could have read the Bible and every book in the world 20 times through. But is that wisdom, or is that knowledge? Satan knows it all. He's probably read every book in the world.
Yep.
But time and again, he fails to get that what he did, wanting to usurp God's power, is what got him into the situation. And all he wants to do then is drag us down with him. Is that wisdom, or is that just sour grapes? I think sour grapes, right?
I agree.
And this Eliphaz is sort of falling into a similar trap, right? That he thinks he knows the situation. He wants to help him, and he thinks that if he listens to him, everything's going to be right. But he's wrong, because if he listened to him, he'd actually come into sin, not out of sin.
Yep.
Well, all right, that is the story, or at least the first part of the story of Eliphaz there. The first of the friends to speak with Job. We still got 2 more to go. I'm going to go ahead and cut the video here, and then we will dedicate either the next episode or the next 2 episodes to each of the next friends. Stay tuned for more of that coming up.